But stepping away from the history lesson, let's talk about theories. So, Disney acquired Fox in March 2019, and we know that since like the 1990s, Fox has owned the X-Men. So, with buying Fox, they got X-Men. Till this day, and McMillian offline brought up a good point that this plan may get pushed back because of the pandemic, probably even more now that they've pushed back some of the phase 4 movies, that the plan for the X-Men may not come for like several years. But even now we've heard that they plan to integrate the X-Men into the MCU. We just don't know when, and we don't know how. So I wanted to take this opportunity from what we've seen, because we've talked about like X-Men integration in a couple previous episodes that I want to bring up too. Just talk about, based on what we know, how we think the X-Men are going to show up. So to talk about the times that we've have brought up like our X-Men theories, we had episode 2, and Ace isn't here, but Ace was talking about when we were talking about Venom, how he thought they were going to introduce like mutants because they had Screech or Shriek in the movie. And then the fact that Venom is now being tied into Tom Holland's Spider-Man, that could be like an X-Men crossover. And then if you listen to episode 6, McMillian also mentioned with the Black Knight and his ancestors. And you said it was King Arthur who's a mutant?
Yeah, so not King Arthur, but so in the comics, the Black Knight is related to a descendant of the Knights of the Round. I believe Sir Percival is the character. Captain Britain
That's who you
is the
said.
brother of Psylocke, and Captain Britain is a descendant of King Arthur, and they are technically the rightful owner of Excalibur. I'm saying like that character could potentially tie into the X-Men related stuff because they have interactions with Captain Britain and stuff like that. Because Captain Britain's a mutant, obviously.
Did you hear that Henry Cavill show interest into playing Captain Britain? If they ever put him in the MCU?
I saw that.
Yeah, I heard.
I think I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I think he's a good actor. It'd be interesting to see Superman because I know a lot of times DC actors and Marvel actors do cross over, but it'd be interesting seeing one holding two prevalent roles in both universes.
Well, from what I heard, Henry Cavill's not in the DC universe anymore.
It's not confirmed. I hope. There are rumors.
I heard it wasn't.
I think he did a good job of Superman. I just don't think people like that movie.
Yeah, I don't think he is, because he was talking about, I think they're moving towards, and not to touch away too far, but apparently along with the Black Superman show, they're also making a Black Superman movie.
I heard about that, which worries me. But back to the X-Men. Yeah, there's a lot of so should I get into my theory or?
Yeah.
Okay. So my theory, I think the way Marvel is currently introducing characters, I think they're going to keep it the same. Now, I don't know what's going to how the mutant gene is going to start, but I think the way they're going to do it, and I think it's going to start with Wakanda Forever, is that I think they're going to slowly start introducing characters that are mutants, like name drop them, or be like, this is such and such from such and such. And you're going to be like, I know that name. I know that
I know who you are.
Yeah, but the thing, because that's how they've always like introduced their characters slightly, like little by little. Here's a nudge there, here's a nudge here. The only thing I'm not too sure is on how the mutant gene might come into play. But I think Wakanda Forever, I think we're going to get introduced to Storm. It's just that she's not going to be Storm yet. I don't know how they're going to do the mutant gene, because the thing is, technically they're supposed to be mutants from birth, but obviously Marvel just got the rights to use mutants. They couldn't even say the word before, which is crazy when you think about it. But I think Storm is going to make her first debut in Wakanda Forever, because there's rumors that this actress, I can't remember her name, but she starred in an HBO series, all her own, called I Will Destroy You or something like that. and there are theories around that she's going to be playing Storm moving forward.
I've heard that too.
Now,
that was
I'm not sure if the mutant gene is going to come from the fact that the snap, such and stuff like that, because they've already made it prevalent in the Eternals that the snap has changed things as far as Earth is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking.
So I don't know if there are mutants current. There could be people walking around right now that don't know that they have the mutant gene in them, and then eventually their powers awaken. But I think two things. I think Marvel's going to stay the course of how they introduce their characters by slightly teasing them in some way, and then later on there's going to be a big thing. But I think whatever, in my opinion, whatever happens, I feel like the mutants need to probably be introduced around the same time Miss Marvel series come out, because for those of you that might not know, Miss Marvel, while not being a mutant, she is a what is that called? An Inhuman. And Inhumans, later on, when they got introduced, they were almost the polar opposite of mutants, because the way Inhumans are made kills people with mutant genes, and that caused a huge divide in human and mutant like relations. And it's interesting because a lot of people are like, "Man, you guys are so similar. You all shouldn't y'all be on the same side?" But it's like, there's a divide because the way they make more Inhumans directly kills people with mutant genomes. So it's like, polar opposites. So I feel like they have a huge chance to probably create an interesting storyline within the cinematic universe if they go that route, especially if they keep Miss Marvel's origins the same. So that's something in my case. But I think we're going to see our first mutant, or I don't know if they're going to mention it, but I think we're going to see our first mention of it in Wakanda Forever, with of the fact that Storm grew up right in a small African country right outside of Wakanda in the first place. So it kind of just makes sense to me that if they were going to introduce a mutant anywhere, especially one of the leaders of the X-Men, I don't think they pass up the potential to do that in this movie. So that's like my big theory.
Yeah, that was one of my. That's not my big theory, but that was one of my theories.
I imagine if going the route where they actually got to explain the mutant gene, because y'all know more of the comic book lore. Like, there was already mutants in the Avengers, right? Like, wasn't Wolverine an Avenger and some other stuff?
Later on, the Avengers pulled in people from different teams. So the X-Men, X-Men are part of the Avengers.
And what generation of the Avengers? Was it like the OGs, like with Captain America?
Not OG. OG was not mutants. I want to.
Was it New Avengers? Like when they started doing the New Avenger comics, that's when they.
I want to say that's probably like around then. But they also did missions with the X-Men sometimes and stuff like that, because people love crossovers.
Yeah,
but,
right. So I imagine it being more subtle, like similar to here's a character, and all of us are like, wait, they just called this little blue looking person Kurt or Nightcrawler. This guy is called Cyclops, and I slick don't even want them to do the more popular mutants. I slick want them to kind of explore, since Marvel is good at making unknown characters big and popular. But I do imagine like somebody like Professor Xavier or somebody just popping up, or somebody meeting him, and he's like, "Oh, we're studying something called the mutant gene, and this is what it does." I imagine that popping up in a movie. I don't know which one. I like the idea of Storm, but it kind of would upset me because wasn't Storm and our boy T'Challa supposed to be a thing?
Yeah, but it can't. They're trying to be respectful of Chadwick's passing, so it's like it might not happen. It would be, unless I guess they try and make his son the love interest of Storm, which would creep me out personally. But
but it's like, I do like that theory. Although I could see them like showing like some scientists who's just exploring it, because I feel like the Thanos snap is an easy route and a more acceptable route of, this is where the mutant gene came from and mutated some people's bodies, because in X-Men lore, what percentage of the population were mutants or carried the trait to be a mutant?
It's not a lot, but the thing is, you can't, unless someone in your family carries the trait, you can't be you're not a mutant anyway.
Right.
So it's like, because it's legit genetics. It's like passing down genes. But that's what I think makes it so interesting, how they're going to roll it into it, because the thing is, it's like they can't come from nowhere, especially if it's like tied to your genome, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, the easy explanation would be the snap to me, because it's like,
that it mutated some people's bodies.
These these people left and came back, and now there's a sequence in their DNA that's different. That makes sense to me.
Right.
That's like a
Yeah,
very
That
easy
it's an
insert.
easy
So
route and it's
I guess
easy
the
to
way that they
accept.
came back. I guess the way that they came back to like what we saw in WandaVision, how we saw Monica's like body being reformed and the way it did, like maybe it because of the way the snap happened and how they undid the snap and the way that everybody was coming back into fruition is that something got screwed with their DNA,
Right.
mm-hmm.
which could explain if they did go this route why she was able to walk through Wanda's force field and get those powers that she had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be
So
interesting. Granted, Photon's not considered a mutant in the comics, but that's still.
right,
I mean, like if that is somewhat of a catalyst to show how mutants are possible, I'm not opposed to it
yeah,
because I think it's still not. It would still in line with the whole fact of like the snap causing genetic changes to people. So
right. So,
Hmm.
about you, Vario, what's your theories?
Don't really have a working theory right now about that. But what you and Jay brought up was kind of interesting. They could like what the Thanos snap, so I can see them possibly going that way as well. It's like yeah, but other than that theory, I don't really have any other theories.
All right.
Okay, I'm trying to see.
So I had a couple.
You go ahead.
You say you're trying to see what?
Cause I'm
What
trying
would
to
you
see
prefer
like
to see?
when else could they introduce the mutants? Like I just gotta look in do some more looking before I can definitely say that.
Yeah. Or maybe we see some more movies and see maybe they could have fit it in here, or it could be like McMillian said, they might start name dropping stuff in the middle of these movies,
And you know they're supposed to do
and then
like
we could
the
start.
multiverse too, like Spider Man movie supposed to be coming in. What if
That could cause something too. Yeah,
yeah, no,
That
I
was one of
mean, my
my theories too.
yeah, I was telling somebody, I forgot who, might have been one of y'all, but I was like, look, I'm such an X-Men fan. If they were like, oh, when Doctor Strange did the spell, it pulled people in from different universes, and now we got X-Men, I'd be like, look, it's lazy. I'm here for it though.
I would love to see it, bro. I got so many
Yeah.
favorite X-Men. I would love to see it.
But I mean, I feel like that would be a good reason too, because he did this whole spell where people are coming in from other universes, and I think it would be unrealistic to say that it's just limited to Spider-Man villains, because we've seen like big
Well,
like universe,
Spider-Man and Spider-Man villains in general.
Hmm.
But
right?
but
But
that's interesting in its not to cut you off, but that's I just want to say real quick. That's interesting in itself because at one point in time they were considering Peter a mutant in certain comic runs. Like he did a lot of stuff with the X-Men, and I think at one point in the comics they were like, technically you're even though you weren't born with the gene, this is going to pass on to your kids if you have kids, and that would technically mean you are somewhat like a mutant.
Hmm.
And that was a thing in the comic for a little bit. And I was like, and so that would be interesting in itself anyway. So that's just all I wanted to say.
I was just gonna say that we've seen where like big universal things happen, and it's this one guy that sneaks in. Like, we're worried about the big
We
problem at hand, but what about all these other people that was like, yeah, I'm finna dip.
I mean, technically, what's funny, we technically saw that in Eternals, like at the end, at the post credit scene of it. Well, hold on, you've seen it, right? I got one.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And spoiler warning for the people watching. I'm so sorry. Skip like probably like 20, maybe 2 to 3 minutes after me talking. But at the post credit scene, we see Star Fox come in,
Yeah,
and we don't know where he came from. He just like blips
right.
in. We assume it's
He just
from our
pops up.
universe, but we don't know. And he
That's
just
true.
slipped in, and we're dealing with this whole God just took 3 people off the planet, and this little dude just snuck in. So it's like, it's very possible that within the whole thing of spells, that technically some people from the other universe could just do,
That was one of my theories too. So I had a couple theories. McMillian touched on one, which was Storm and Wakanda Forever. Vario touched on the multiverse thing. My big Theory and McMillian, we've talked about this before, which is if they don't do Wakanda Forever, they have a chance to name drop or put in an X-Men character for Captain Marvel. So this is going into the Rogue and Captain Marvel connection. So, giving a little backstory about Rogue, Rogue was introduced as a villain before she was a hero. She's still from Mississippi, Southern Belle. When her powers manifested and she ran away from home, for those who've watched the X-Men movies, you saw that, she hopped with Wolverine and they went on their little buddy trip. But in the comics, she was found by Mystique. And Mystique took her in and raised her as her own. So when Rogue got to a certain age, Mystique sent her on her first mission to go after Captain Marvel. So fast forwarding, Rogue did get to Captain Marvel, and for those who know Rogue's powers, when she touches somebody, she gets like their powers for like a brief time. But during their scuffle, Rogue held on to Captain Marvel for so long that she got half of Carol Danvers' memories, and she got a portion. Well, not like she's not as strong as Captain Marvel.
Yeah, she can't
but
do she's not a living star basically like Captain Marvel is, but she has like the super strength, the flight, the stuff like that.
Okay.
Right.
She just doesn't have like blast, and she can't cover herself in like I forget what the stuff Captain Marvel covers herself in, but
the cosmic
energy
stuff.
Yeah, she can't do all that.
Right, but she has like some of Captain Marvel's strength. So they could, how Jay was saying about Storm showing in Wakanda Forever, like her showing up and not being Storm yet, they could introduce Rogue and Rogue not being Rogue yet.
So you think they'll just do all of the different characters that way, and then at some point it's like they team up or gather coincidentally?
I don't know. I wanted to touch on your thing about them not doing the main X-Men team that we've seen before. I could see Marvel introducing the X-Men, but not introducing them as a full team yet. Like they kind of just pop up in different places. And then for some reason, like after we get through the second generation, then it's like, okay, let's go full X-Men.
Right.
I could see them doing that. And I don't mind them doing the main cast. I just hope that they do the way they execute it, they do it well. Especially if they're gonna bring in Storm and Rogue, I'm not mad at. What I'm going to be upset is if they bring in Jean Grey and they drop the ball on it.
Ooh.
Honestly, that would be one of the main characters that I would rather not see in the MCU.
Right.
Honestly. Like we've seen them.
Do you feel like just to touch on it a little bit, do you feel like you feel that way because all the attempts at Jean Grey have been bad? Not saying like the actors or anything like that, but it's more of like the fact that when they finally get to the Dark Phoenix storyline, one of the most pivotal storylines in comics, they constantly drop the ball on it.
That's me. And if the MCU did do it, I think they would do a better job. But at the same time, do I really want to see Dark Phoenix again? And touching on Ryan's point is that the MCU has done a good job of taking characters that weren't remotely popular and making them very popular characters. Like to even go back to the beginning of the MCU, most people didn't know who Iron Man was. That, and they did not know if the Iron Man movie was going to sell. But because the Iron Man movie did so good, that kicked everything off. So it's just, I'm tired of seeing the Dark Phoenix story being touched on, and I think that this would be a good time to focus because the X-Men is huge.
Yeah.
Like they have so many different characters that they could explore and integrate into these stories that I don't think they have to go and get the big top X-Men characters to make it worth it. I think they could take some of the other characters and still push out a really good X-Men story. So
You think
that was my
you think a live action series could be born from it, or that could be the introduction of them in
Yeah, I
comparison
think
to a
I
movie?
yeah.
definitely think I
I think
definitely
a
think that
series
they
would be
could do it.
better.
I definitely think they could do it. I think a series definitely could come about, and maybe a couple of movies that focus on the X-Men, because they're already talking about making a Fantastic Four movie, which I feel like is going to be separate from the Avengers. Well, I mean, I think it's going to be in the world, but I don't think it's going to tie into like Avengers movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the same could be said for the X-Men. I think that we might get a separate series of movies for the X-Men, and eventually there might be like a huge team up of all these characters. But I think if they want to do it correctly, what they're going to do is probably introduce the characters, get the X-Men team together, make a Disney Plus series on it, and then have like these movies where that focuses on X-Men stories until like some big thing happens that affects the Marvel universe in a whole, and then you have the Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four have to team up or something like that. Because I think one thing they might have learned, especially after the Eternals came out, is that making a movie where you have to get introduced to all these new characters, you have to care about them almost instantly, does not work very well.
We've seen it.
So
We've seen it.
We liked it,
Go the
but
series route.
I was like, yeah, it was okay, but the thing is, it didn't give me I think like even when I went to a happy hour with some coworkers and they were saying the same thing. Like it would have been better if it was a series or like something I presented at the thing that I didn't really get to touch on in our Eternals episodes. Like even if it was like mini episodes that introduced us to the characters first instead of say the movie, I still feel like that would have been a better job than just being like, here are these 10 people, love
Here's a
them.
movie. Yeah. What's up, y'all? If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get more updates from the mob. For the full discussion and more discussions like this one, click the link in the description. Thanks for watching.
Rock with it, let me pop my shit. Let me pop my shit. Hands up.